So I think there is something interesting in terms of historical teleology between Deng Xiaoping Thought and the Taliban. Some have said, because I am not allowed to say this myself, all right? I'm not allowed to say this myself, but some have said, some have made the connection, and some have made the argument. I'm not making it. I would never make this argument. But some have actually made the argument that infrared is a combination of the Taliban with Deng Xiaoping Thought. Some have said that. Some have said that infrared's ideology is a combination between the Taliban and Deng Xiaoping Thought. And I have to stay neutral, because I would not be allowed on YouTube to endorse that view, that that's what infrared's ideology is. But hypothetically, I would blink like 3 times if I endorse that view 5,000%. Not only would I have, if I blink 3 times in a row, then not only do I endorse that view, but I actually am the one who created that idea, and I didn't get it from anyone else. I just blamed it on someone else to absolve responsibility for the fact that it's actually my view. So anyway, let's continue talking about what we were talking about. China dwells in not only a different world as a space, but a different time than the West and America. China dwells in a place after the American apocalypse. China is the future. China is arriving to us from a future, but also a future that has already crossed the threshold of the end of America and the end of the modern West. China has taken for granted the destruction of the modern West. It has fulfilled the destruction of the modern West by virtue of its being. It has already taken that for granted. And it has developed according to a temporality of retrocausality. Now we have the Taliban to just fulfill this process. Taliban, or global Islam more generally, acting as China's Terminator. If China is Skynet, Taliban is the Terminator. China time travels? Literally, yes. China, by virtue of its existence, has been time traveling. If you want a literary expression of this fact, just read Nick Land's tour guides for tourists. Read his book, Templexity, and you'll see Chinese time travel in action. What future is the Taliban bringing forth? China, the one that China has already taken for granted. What's the connection between China and the Taliban? The Belt and Road Initiative, that's the connection. The Belt and Road Initiative. Many people think the Taliban are like ISIS or Al-Qaeda. They're not. The Taliban, I can say this, I'm going to say this on stream live in front of everyone. The Taliban are an organic emergence of Central Asian, South Asian, Islamic modernity. The Taliban do not come from Western inspired fundamentalism. The Taliban emerge from a deep, deep, hidden South Asian, Central Asian Sufi tradition. They came from the Sufi madrasas. They have been born of a forgotten, according to modernity, wisdom within Islam. And all of their harshness comes from the fact that they have cleansed the palate of Western modernity. All of the overgrown excesses. The Taliban are like French Revolution. Of course, the French Revolution was ugly. There was guillotines and beheadings and killings and all these things. That is their historical role. Isn't the Taliban CIA? No! That was the Mujahideen. The Taliban came after. They were people who went to study in these madrasas a form of Islamic Sufism. And they came back to Afghanistan to cleanse it of the warlord corruption of the Mujahideen, to implement one universal Afghan state amidst all of this tribal infighting and warlord factionalism. That is Mongol modernity, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how else to sell it to you. That is Mongol modernity. Does the Taliban allow girls to go to school? Yes, they do. There's a lot of things that are being lied about them. They do allow women to go to school. They're not backward and primitive, as people try to fucking say. They're not. Sorry, they're not. They're not. That's just a fundamental misrepresentation. They have banned the pedos from Afghanistan. They banned that Baka Bazai bullshit. And then here's the other thing. They're collaborating with China on the Belt and Road Initiative. They are going to unleash the productive forces in Afghanistan. And that combination between the raw nomadicism, the raw, pure Asian modernity of their nomadicism, with the technological forces of production being unleashed, plus the moral animation, even more pure and distilled than Xi Jinping thought in many ways, in terms of the moral orientation, moral purpose as the animation of a purified Asian modernity in the form of Islam, is an extremely powerful combination. That is somewhere an extension of Xi Jinping thought. Now, is this what's going to happen? I don't know. But I'm saying the potential is there. The potential is there. Afghanistan has so much wealth and minerals. And this unique form of modernity will give rise to a very prosperous, civilized society, I believe. I think all of the harshness of the Taliban, that's just the primary foundation. I envision a future Afghanistan built on top of the foundation the Taliban created, where there is a nominal, communistic style equality between men and women. People aren't forced. I can see it. I can see it happening. Something is there. Something is there. It's a foundation. Let's not forget the foundation of the modern West is Protestant puritanical fanaticism. And the Taliban's Sufism is much more pure, even than that. It's less artificial. It's based in something really ancient. So that actually opens up the question. Deng Xiaoping's achievement is the acknowledgement that the scale of socialist construction is discontinuous with the individual consciousness of modernity. But what of individual moral consciousness, or moral consciousness more generally, even if it doesn't take the modern form? That is the era of Xi Jinping. The era in which you don't try to control the mode of production according to morality, but you try to perceive in the development of the productive forces a fundamentally, imminently moral orientation, and you respond to the calling by means of morality and the aesthetic. You respond to the calling of material necessity by means of the open space of the aesthetic and of morality. The aesthetic sense used to perceive with clarity a newfound freedom opened up by the development of the productive forces, of which way, of the how, of what color is the cat really? What color should the cat be really? that morality is still grounded in a material necessity, of course. But it's also a morality that's active, that involves the active, subjective element of a human consciousness. Now, where does the Taliban fit in that? Why does the Taliban seem to have a place in world history to me? Because the Taliban's morality is based in a fundamental material necessity of law of Afghan and Islamic reality. But the reason the Taliban is different from ISIS is because, in contrast to the perversion of ISIS or Al-Qaeda, even, the Taliban somehow can separate the law of material reality from its implementation. And this is because of their unique Sufi perspective. So I think there is something interesting in terms of historical teleology between Deng Xiaoping Thought and the Taliban. Deng Xiaoping Thought, which opens up the reality of the development of the mode of production as its own reality, not reducible to modern morality. But then here comes the Taliban, which are able to perceive in the matrices of the development of material reality a law, a tradition of humanity. Not law of, like, you impose the law, but like these are the laws of nature, human nature, for example. The law of human nature as God created us, for example. Because if you understand Islam, it's supposed to orient our consciousness in accordance with how God created us, right? The significance of the creation just refers to the fact that it's both material and moral with the Taliban. Now, is it scientific? No, it's not scientific. They're not Marxists, they're not Marxist-Leninists. But in terms of a fundamental aesthetic, it's there. The sense is there. See, the Taliban are not ISIS because they don't just derive an abstractly contrived religious law that they set against reality. They perceive a deeper mystical harmony between the law of the Sharia and the law of Afghan culture that is able to synthesize in reality somehow. I think there is something there for Xi Jinping thought. Reality of communism, Marxism, Leninism, and reality of material Chinese culture, so on and so on, can be synthesized at the level of the morality and the aesthetic, of the subjective consciousness, giving purpose, because there's a search for purpose in Chinese society today. And this search for purpose is being resolved most beautifully, I should add, in the way the Chinese government is starting to promote traditional Chinese religions. They're promoting Taoism. They're promoting Buddhism. They're promoting Islam for the Hui and for Uyghurs. And they're also promoting Christianity in other ways, but especially Chinese traditional religions. I think this is beautiful. And I think a beautiful interaction between Buddhism specifically and Sufi Islam can be possible today in that region of the world. And to be honest, that's where my heart is. That's where I am. That's where my heart is. It's not here. Is it true only an atheist can join the CPC? Yes, you have to be an atheist. But what does atheism mean there? It doesn't mean nihilist, modern nihilist. It means you believe in only communism. Only communism. And you have to be an atheist because there's no hermeneutic according to which a deeper mystical religious reality can be acknowledged. There's the overt reality of the religious ideology and the overt reality of the communist ideology. Of course, they can't be compatible. But if you have an esoteric reality, hermeneutic reality of mystical religions, I think that can be compatible with overt communist ideology. And I think among Chinese upper circles, it is already. It is, probably. But as religions as a political sectarian identity is not compatible with communism. Of course, how could it be? If you are a political sectarian religious person, how can you be a communist? You can't. You can't serve all of China as a communist because you don't have a common ideology. What about Gnosticism? I think that is superfluous in many ways. All right, I'm going to read the Patreon. So let's go read our Patreon messages.